Hello, in this week's lab, we're going to take a look at the cardiovascular effects of exercise. We're going to use the PowerLab system as well as the LabChart software. With this, we're going to use our finger pulse transducer that we've used previously. Again, the finger pulse transducer is going to go into input number 1. We're going to use our 5-lead shielded cable here. The shielded cable, make sure I get it in the right position, is going to go into the BioAmp connector. Again, it'll only fit in one way. So we'll be able to put that in. And then with the 5-lead shielded cable, we're only going to use 3 leads associated with it. And so we're going to use the black and the white leads. The black and white leads are going to plug into channel 1. And we're also going to use the green lead, and the green lead is going to plug into the earth. That is going to be the common or the ground. And that green lead is going to be hooked up to our dry earth strap. Again, so basically kind of snap that in for the electrode and then put the fuzzy portion next to your skin. Now, in addition to that, we've got skin cleansing swabs. We've also got cotton balls and things like that, so we can help kind of clean the skin and increase the conductivity. We're going to use disposable electrodes, and so we've got sheets of those that are available. Like we've seen previously, if you take the disposable electrode off, you're going to see that it's going to have a little bit of adhesion around the outside to help it adhere to your skin. And then we're going to use electrode gel to put a little dot in the location of that electrode. So it's on the opposite side of the snap-on connector. We'll put a little bit of this electrode gel into that position, again, to help with the conductivity. So to prepare your subject for the experiment, the first thing you want to do is kind of clean off the areas where we're going to be putting our disposable electrodes. And so you can use the skin cleansing swabs. Generally going to use it on the left forearm or left wrist, the right forearm or right wrist, as well as the right ankle. And so the right ankle is going to be the location where we're going to put the dry earth strap. So again, the fuzzy side against the skin. Try to do this in a way that I can move around still. Will be the demonstration. And then we're going to put an electrode onto the left forearm. So again, peel it off of the paper, put a small dot of electrode gel over the location, kind of in the middle of all of that adhesion. That's going to help connect, or at least the connectivity between the electrode and the skin. And so we can put that on the forearm or on the wrist. Do that on the same way on our right forearm or wrist. A bit of electrode gel on the electrode. And then we're also going to want to put the pulse transducer on. The pulse transducer, just double check my notes. Can go on the tip of the middle finger of either hand. And since I'm right-handed, I'm going to use that to use the computer. I'm going to put it on my left hand. Again, put it with the smooth force transducer side, the smooth diaphragm side against your middle finger. Ideally, you want to have it snug, but not so snug that it's going to cut off your circulation. So once your subject has been prepared, we've got the electrodes attached. We are going to attach the black electrode. Is going to go to the left forearm. I'm going to snap that in position. And then the right electrode is going to go on the white electrode is going to go on the right forearm. And so we basically have everything hooked up. We've got the pulse transducer on the finger, the black electrode on the left wrist, the white electrode on the right wrist, and I've got the dry earth strap on my right ankle. Okay, so once your subject is set up, we're able to go over now and open up the LabChart software, double click on the icon for LabChart, Going to open up our welcome center. We're going to look for cardiovascular effects of exercise. Again, this may be in the main set of menus here, or it may be in a folder saying human physiology. And initially for the first set of experiments, we're going to do ECG and pulse settings. And so we double click to select that. So, okay, and we're going to maximize that. And then we should be all set up to do our initial measurements. Okay, so once your subject is set up, they should be able to sit comfortably in a relaxed position, ideally turned away from the monitor, making sure that the pulse transducer is not bumping against an object or resting on anything. You should prepare a comment. Actually, you have to start it a little bit, start and then stop. We're going to add a comment that says at rest. We're going to enter at that point, and then we're going to let this run for 2 minutes. And again, if you see, I'm moving around a little bit at this point, and it's going to result in a fair amount of static on our readouts here. But as I sit more comfortably, I go into a resting position, we're going to see the pattern kind of emerging that we want to see. And so channel 1 is going to be the raw signal, giving us the net rate of blood flow into the finger. Channel 2 is going to be a time integral of channel 1. And so it's basically measuring the change in the finger pulse blood flow over time. So basically the change in blood flow to the finger over a period of time. And that's the one we're going to be using for analysis. Channel 3 is coming from our bioamp with our 3 leads. And this is the ECG. If we take a look at this, if we're not seeing an ECG, in this case, I've got an electrode that's lifting up right here. So reposition that, and as you can see, as I moved, I got a lot of static on the screen. And as I settle down, it looks a little bit better. If the signal is really noisy at the forearms or wrist, you can also try placing it on the upper arm, but make sure you try to avoid the major muscles. Normally, you want to run this for about 2 minutes to get some baseline measurements. And then at that point, you're going to want to hit stop. And we're going to move on to the next aspect of data collection before we do the data analysis. And so the next thing is going to be to take a look at the ECG and pulse volume after exercise. And so we're going to leave everything set up the same way. We're going to add a comment at this point. So right click on it, add a comment. The comment is going to be, I keep losing this connector. The comment is going to be doing recovery. Helps if you can spell correctly. Now, what's going to happen is once we've got everything set up for the recovery, we're going to leave everything attached. We're going to leave the pulse transducer attached. We're going to leave the electrodes attached. And what we're going to do is unplug the cables from the system. And so we're going to unplug channel 1, the pulse transducer. We're going to unplug the bioamp. And they're basically going to have your test subject, your volunteer, kind of hold these cables so that they're not tripping on them. And then they're going to walk up and down the stairs briskly. Not trying to race, not trying to trip over the cables, but enough to elevate the heart rate. And so I am going to go in and do that for 2 minutes. So I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back from running up and down the stairs for 2 minutes. We want to reconnect up the cables. So the pulse transducer. Going into input number 1, the 5-lead shielded cable will go into the bioamp connector. Again, it's only going to go in one way. Once we got everything there, double check and make sure the leads are still in position and that your test subject can get into kind of a relaxed position like they were sitting before. Hit enter to put the comment in, and then hit start while my electrodes keep lifting up. And then we're going to allow this to run for probably 3 to 4 minutes. You've got good measurements to take a look at. Okay, so once you've collected 4 minutes of ECG and pulse volumes during that recovery period, what you can do is leave the pulse transducer on the finger, but you can take off the electrodes on the wrist, as well as the dry or strap off of the right ankle. And then we can, we're not going to use that in the remaining exercises. Okay, so once you're ready to do the analysis, we're going to focus in initially on the ECG in channel number 3. I would right-click and auto-scale. We've increased the horizontal axis using the big mountains down here at the bottom. It's probably a little bit too much, but we can see clearly that the P wave, the Q isn't as distinct here. The R, the peak there. The S, a little bit of a gap, and then the T wave of repolarization kind of occurring at that point over there. Now, it's often difficult to kind of learn initially where these different intervals and durations are going to be. And so if you go on to Canvas, we've got a link, a diagram showing ECG parameters in a new window. You pull that open, and it's going to give you this image right here. So again, the first thing we're going to look at is going to be the P to R interval. And so this is going to be from the start of the P wave to the start of the deflection for the Q. And so again, we're going to go to LabChart here. We're going to use the marker and the waveform cursor. So again, right-click on this and set the marker. And so we're going to put the marker at this point right here. And then if we put our waveform cursor here at this position, what we can see is in the upper corner right up here, where I'm circling it with the pointer there, we can see that this is about 0.205 seconds there. If we want to check another one, go kind of the start of the P wave, use our cursor to the start of our QRS, that's about 0.2. And so that's going to be our PR interval. For our QRS duration, the QRS duration is going to go from the beginning of the Q to the end of the S. So again, we are going to move our marker. So hold our left mouse button down from the starting point here to that point there. And we're looking at about 0.09 seconds. Take a look at another one over here. Again, 0.085 seconds, so fairly consistent with that. Then, I'm sorry, make sure we get it in the right point, about 0.085, so there. The ST interval, again, if we need to remember that, the ST is going to be from the end of the S to the beginning of the T. The next we're going to take a look at is going to be the TP interval. The TP interval is basically going to be from the end of the T to the beginning of the P. And then finally, we need the R to R marker, or I'm sorry, the R to R interval. So we move the marker to the peak of our R there, our cursor to the peak of our R for the next one. And that's going to give us roughly 1.055 seconds. And so we're going to repeat that for a couple different examples at the rest period and then various points in recovery. We're going to calculate the heart rate from the R to R interval. And so basically what we're going to do is do 1 over whatever that R to R interval was right here. So in this case, it would be 1 over 1.055 times 60, and that's going to give us the number of heartbeats per second. The next thing we're going to analyze is going to be the pulse amplitude. So again, we're going to look at the volume pulse trace, and this is going to be channel 2. The raw information was on channel 1. The integral was on channel 2. Same basic idea. We're going to take our marker. We're going to put it kind of at the starting point there. And then we're going to go from this low point to its peak. So in this case, we're looking at an amplitude of what they're measuring, about 9.39. Move it over here to another one. This one is about 10.18. So you can see a little bit of variability within this. Go to that, and it's going to be 10.59, so closer to the first one. So with these measurements, it's often good to take two measurements and then take the average of those and enter those in. So again, you're going to do that at rest and then at various periods, time periods after recovery. So to find that recovery, kind of go over, we've got our comment here, then we added recovery. This is now starting the clock over again, in essence. And so this is 0 seconds of recovery, about a second and a half of recovery. And so we can drag it out. So if we want to do, at 60 seconds, we can go over here to 1 minute. And again, if we wanted to take a look at this, we can add the marker and go to the peak here. In this case, it's 6.65. Our R to R interval at this point, I got a marker down there. Our R to R interval in this point is 1.045. So you can, again, go through and do measurements in this way. Okay, so for the second activity, we're going to take a look at ECG and pulse volume. The easiest way to get into that is to exit out and then go back in. And in this case, what you want to do is, again, look at cardiovascular effects of exercise. But then in this case, we're going to look at hand exercise settings. So double click on that. Okay, so we should be all set. And so we're going to have a pulse transducer on the middle finger of one of the hands. We're not going to use the shielded bioamp cables and the electrodes. You can take those off the subject if you've not done so already. And so we've gone in and chosen our hand exercise settings. We're going to hit start and then stop, so we can add a comment on. So add the comment, right click, add comment, and this is going to be at rest. And we can hit start. And we'll auto scale both of these. You can see, pretty good measurements at this point. If you see a lot of static, you may want to reposition the finger pulse transducer, see if it's too tight or too loose. But you should see a good readout kind of looking like this. Now record a baseline pulse for about 30 seconds. And so we're upwards to about 30 seconds now. So I'm going to stop this. We're going to stop the recording. We're going to prep a comment, and so we're going to add the comment recovery. And then what's going to happen is you want the individual with their hand that they're going to have their pulse transducer on to squeeze either the hand dynamometer or some other object that they have present. Basically a squeezing activity. Again, don't put any pressure on the pulse transducer itself. So I can set my stopwatch. In fact, if you want to, you should probably take the pulse transducer off. And so you want the individual to be squeezing an object for 3 minutes to do this set of hand exercise, and should ideally be getting the forearm muscles very active, ideally to the point where they start to fatigue. Okay, so once the individual has exercised their forearm, exercised their hand for 3 minutes, and fatigue has started to set in, reconnect the pulse transducer to the middle finger like you had before, add the comment that says recovery, and then hit start. And again, hopefully the individual will be able to sit comfortably at rest with their hand resting on their leg without moving around a whole lot. And we can see a fairly good pulse pattern like we've got right here. We can look at the blood flow both at the top and the volume of the pulse, the interval down at the bottom. And what you want to do is record this for at least 2 minutes, or until the amplitude of the finer pulse signal remains constant for about a minute. Okay, so I've let my recovery period go for about 3 minutes. I'm going to hit stop now at this point, and what we can do is go through and do the analysis. And so start out at rest. So grab the scroll bar down here at the bottom. I'll go all the way back. And so we've got our recovery comment. So everything after this is going to be recovery. Before that, we are going to have the at rest. We're going to take our measurements from channel 2, our volume pulse, that interval down here. Again, we're going to use the marker and the waveform cursor. And so right click on channel 2 and say set the marker. We're going to set the marker kind of down here in the valley, and then we're going to go up here to the peak. So in this case, the peak of our volume pulse here is about 10.66 millivolts. And so take it over here, take a couple measurements, take the average, go over here in our immediately after our exercise, our hand exercise. So set the marker again down within this valley. So down here at that valley point, go for the peak. In this case, we're at 13.84. Take another measurement, 13.56. Should we get it in the valley? You need to, you can expand out the x-axis a little bit by clicking on the big mountains down here at the bottom. And again, that allows us to then, in this case, 13.34. We're looking at these numbers over here. And then take a couple of these measurements and then put the average in on your data report. Once you've completed with that, you can answer the questions at the end and then submit your lab report.